the development of full artificial intelligence could spell the end of the human race.
It's a flying object, and we don't know what it is. I would hope somebody is checking it out.
It was a rocket or whatever, but incredibly fast, opposite direction. It was too fast to be an airplane.
I'm glad the Pentagon is looking at this, because if it poses a threat, I want them on top of it.
Well, the craft generates its own gravitational field.
You said there's lights in the sky?
The internet has become the command center for criminals and terrorists.
911, what's your emergency? I need help, please help me!
Aliens won't let it happen. You know, that's what we're instructed to say.
Roswell, Area 51. Alien kept deep under the ground.
1 0 1 1 1 0 1 1 6 3
Media doesn't have your best interest in mind. The government is self-serving. You're here for a reason. You're listening to Troubled Minds Radio. Broadcasting live from a secret bunker just off the extraterrestrial highway. Somewhere in the desert sands outside of Las Vegas. From somewhere in space-time, loosely labeled Generation X on planet Earth. And asking questions of you in earnest into the digital darkness. Yo ho. Yo ho. Welcome to Troubled Minds Radio. I am your host, Michael Strange. I am here with your co-host, Frank Pierce. And we would like to say hello to all of you who might also have troubled minds. What's up, guys? Happy Sunday. This show is live. The date, November 18th, 2018. If you'd like to be part of the show tonight, the number to call, 702-957-1037. You can also click on the Discord link right there on Facebook on the Little Green Men stream, and we'll put you on the show. You can talk to Frank, you can talk to Mike, you can talk about UFOs, you can talk about extraterrestrials, you can talk about all the things that the government doesn't want us talking about. You can talk about all the things that academia puts their nose up at. When we mention these things, they laugh at us. They tell us we're uneducated. They tell us our speculation is faulty. But we kind of think a little bit differently because that's why we do this. So if you guys are new, what we're going to do, this show, about all those things that I just mentioned and more. We've got more. There's always more. But for now, tonight's going to be about UFO crashes, some evidence, some analysis on a couple different 2, 3, 4 incidents we picked out, and we're going to go through some of that stuff. And but before we do that, there's a couple things. We'll do some news first. So if you guys want to talk about the news, we're going to talk about news, some space news, etc. But before we do that, so there's the agenda. We got space news, we got UFO crashes, some evidence and stuff. But right now, before we do that, the most important part of the whole show, ladies and gentlemen, your co-host, Frank Pierce.
Hello, I'm Frank Pierce. We're back again, hopefully for another good show. Lots of interesting topics to cover today. Lots of things that'll get you thinking, things that'll start to worry you if you're a paranoid fellow like myself. So as always, join the Discord. We'll post the link throughout the show, but you can join in. You can hop in the on-air channel here, and we'll have a chat with you. If you've seen some alien crashes yourself, if you've seen some strange things that go bump in the night, let us know, and we're here to talk. Or call in. We have the phone number of 702-957-1037. Call that. You'll connect right to the show, and we'll talk to you about all this crazy stuff. Or maybe it's not so crazy. As always, we appreciate the chat. We appreciate the comments. That's how this show keeps going. The feedback from you guys is great. But more important than that, the ideas we get from you are even better. So many great topics, so much information pouring out of the chat, coming straight to us. We don't need the mainstream media. We don't need those liars, those thieves telling us what to do, because we can do it ourselves. We can do all of this on our own. That's what this show's about. We talk about these topics. We analyze the news. And most importantly, we talk to you guys. So let's get into it.
Let's do it. Let's talk to you guys. Let's jump right into that part. Shout outs. We got Fred. What's happening? He gets the vaunted first for showing up in chat. We got Chad, Nick, Todd, Joe, Ernie, Kelly, Christopher. He says he shared. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. That's how you blow this show up. That's how you help us. Share, like, comment. It all helps. Todd says, speaking of that, I was having a debate about Enki and Enlil with the so-called archaeologist yesterday, and the minute I mentioned DNA slicing, he immediately said chariots of the gods, ? I don't know. His convo was blocked. Oh, he blocked me. Okay, I don't know about this. Anyway, there we go. Yes, exactly. There are certain topics that are taboo among academia, and everybody draws their lines just a little bit different. But it seems like in that particular case, you touched a hot button. You got insta labeled a quack, and there you go. You're our favorite quack, Todd. Okay, so space news. What we got? Where are we starting with, Frank?
Let's open this one here. So this is from WARL.com. Pilots spot UFO over Ireland skies. Here's why it's not aliens. So that's a nice leading headline right off the bat. Here's why it's not aliens. So we covered this in the last couple of shows, but basically there were a few pilots over Ireland who saw some strange, very bright, unidentified flying objects in the sky. And these things were coming up next to the plane. They were moving around. They were changing their trajectory. And I think there were 4 of them, 4 bright lights kind of flying in formation. Now, we actually, my co-host here, cut down the air traffic control calls, put it up on the YouTube channel so you can listen to the entire clip there if you're interested. But these guys were freaked out. These pilots were freaked out. They didn't know what was going on. They were calling to the ground saying, hey, are there any military tests going on? What is this? What's happening? And there was no answers. Still no answers. No real answers. Now we have a great news story here that's saying that these pilots who have trained all their lives to fly in the sky, who know all this stuff down packed, they don't know what they're talking about. This journalist here, they don't know what they're talking about. So what happened? Airline pilots saw these flying objects. And they go on here, similar to the Oumuamua stories we've been covering. They say that these couldn't have been UFOs. They were just meteors. They failed to mention that they changed direction. They failed to mention there was more than one of them. They just leave out details. So again, I probably use this word too much, but propaganda. This is what this is. This is a state-sponsored denial of this story. So here's some criticism. An aviation expert said it was likely a meteor. Well, a meteor doesn't change direction midair. Other stuff like this, they don't mention multiple. They only say there's one. But again, these pilots were in the air. They saw these things happening. They saw them changing away, banking, climbing away at speeds, changing their speed in the air. And this journalist comes along and he says, hey, nothing to see here, move on. This kind of thing, now that I'm paying attention for it, now that I'm actively looking for it, this kind of thing is blatant. This is everywhere. I'm seeing this everywhere now, is they'll take an interesting story, they'll cherry pick out certain details, they'll argue against those details, then they'll interject a few falsehoods or misinterpretations, and they've crafted themselves a narrative they can use to deny the story at large. What do you think about that? Because I'm seeing this more and more.
Yeah, actually, funny. So we're doing some research on some UFO crashes tonight, and exactly that. You find more of these quote debunking articles than you find any actual evidence. At least from the old school when this stuff actually happened. Back to the 1947, the 60s, early 80s. There's a lot of stuff that's been removed from history here, and it's been replaced. It's literally we're talking about. We say it a lot. I'm going to say it again. This is George Orwell. This is the Ministry of Truth right here. Every single thing that they don't want us to talk about, it gets a debunk hit piece. And here's another one. This is exactly why we do this show, because we think this is trash. Shouldn't they be able to just release this information and let us talk about it and let us decide, right? Simple. It should be very simple, except, here's the caveat. For them, if this information gets out, they're afraid of what we will do, and we are the majority. So keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. That's the fact. They're scared. They're afraid. The powers that be, the technocracy, the government, academia, they're all afraid because they're not quite sure how we will react if this stuff is actually real. If there's some kind of disclosure event, they're not sure what will happen. And they cite things like War of the Worlds, where people jumped out of buildings and whatnot. So anyway, I see it. You're right. Like, I'm seeing it more and more because we're looking for it more and more. We do this show, and so we're digging into a lot of things, okay? Things that we might not. We kind of glaze over it, read a couple, 3 articles, but now we're reading 10, 12, 15, 18, 20 articles. And I'm telling you, this information is going away. It's this is, I would call this blatantly a conspiracy. What do you think?
Yeah, we even have a couple of pictures back in our that we'll pull up during this episode that we'll see front page headlines. So you'll see a newspaper article, front page headlines, details about these crashes, details about these things. You don't see that anymore. You see denial. Whereas in the past, again, you'd see, was this a UFO? Here's the evidence for this. Here's what it could have been. A balanced piece of journalism. Now we just see denial, denial, denial. So I don't know what's going on here. Here's a quote from this article, just to finish it up. 2 bright lights at 11 o'clock, which seemed to bank over to the right and then climb away at speed. So that was from a pilot who saw these things over Ireland. And, I'd love a news article or a piece written by this guy or girl. Don't want to assume anything. I'd love some first-hand accounts, a journal from this person who actually saw this thing, instead of a journalist reporting on a re-report of a re-report and dumbing the entire thing down. That's how we get the real information. But of course, this guy who I just quoted worked for Virgin, probably be fired if he talked out about it, really. Quacky UFO pilot talks about UFOs would be the headline. So it's unfortunate we don't see any of that, but I think that's what we need, is more first-hand reporting and less of this dumbed-down nonsense.
Agreed, 100%. I got some funny comments I got to read here. Hold on, where was it? This is too good. Nick says, how embarrassing does it have to be for the aliens to travel countless light years just to crash on Earth? Gold. Good one, Nick. Good one. But this in particular is not a crash, of course, but the show is about crashes, so that's what the comment was, and had to read that. I couldn't skip that. Good stuff. I ponder that myself from time to time. Okay, so a few more shout-outs here, and then we'll move on unless Frank has anything else, or in case you guys want to talk about this. So remember, this show is live. This November 18th, 2018. If you're listening tonight, it is live. You can call us, 702-957-1037. Click on the Discord link, and Little Green Men will put you on the show. You can talk to Frank, you can talk to Mike, you can talk about UFOs. We're talking about the one in Ireland that just happened recently. If you haven't seen it, go to our YouTube page, which you can find at troubledminds.org. Click that link. Right there on top, there will be the actual air traffic control conversation between the pilots and the people trying to figure out what's going on. So, completely unedited, other than just cutting out pauses, but it's there. If you guys want to check it out about this particular incident, that's how you get the actual raw data. Go to our YouTube channel, find it on troubleminds.org, and there you go. You can listen to it. But if you'd rather give us a call and talk about this stuff, 702-957-1037, or click the Discord link, and there you go. All right, anything else about this one, Frank?
No, let's move on. So let's look at this one next. earthsky.org. So new NASA video calls for return to the moon and Mars. NASA put out this video. It's receiving a lot of acclaim. People are very excited about what's going on here. So I think we can play that. Should be taxpayer dollars funded this production, so goddamn right we're going to play it. Anyway, they're going on about this and that, and they're making a nice showpiece. So how about we play that video? It's only 2 minutes long, and then we'll talk about it afterwards. How does that sound?
Here we go. Action. Let's play this sucker.
Ignition sequence start. All engines are running.
We have taken tremendous steps.
We choose to go to the moon before this decade is out.
We have achieved the earth-shaking, the breathtaking, the groundbreaking,
One small step for man.
and left a mark in the heavens. Our successes build one upon another and amplify what is possible.
The dawn of Orion.
It's time we take the next great leap. We're building the next chapter of American exploration, returning to the moon to stay, so we can go beyond to Mars, to expand what's possible and further our understanding. The architecture for these missions is already taking shape. We will go with new systems, bold designs, and a sustainable mission. You can hear it, taste it, touch it. We are going. We are training, testing, pressing our pioneering spirit into every component, defining our resolve with every line of code, and securing our success with every welcomed partnership. This is not hypothetical. This is not about flags and footprints. This is about sustainable science and feeding forward the advance of the human spirit. Because we are the pioneers, the star sailors, the thinkers, the visionaries, the doers. And because we stand on the shoulders of giants to go farther than humanity has ever been, we will add our names to the rolls of the greatest adventurers in history. Every day, every mission, we advance this calling. We are NASA. And after 60 years, we're just getting started.
Yes! Yes, let's go to war. Give me a sharp screwdriver and a tinfoil hat. I'm going to take these aliens down. I'm proud to be American. How do you feel? Woo!
That's my first instinct too. Is that video is amazing. That gets you pumped up. That gets you excited. Unfortunately, it's all propaganda, right?
Oh.
I hate to burst your bubble. I hate to do it. Like, that was a great piece of production that gets you excited to go to space. That gets you happy, but it's propaganda, right? We got videos from Russia, all right? These Russian videos of this robot. He pulls out a gun. He starts shooting down targets. He hops in a car, this robot. He's driving along the road. Then he pulls a drill out and he starts drilling a hole in the wall. They're sending those robots to remotely man a base on the moon. Russia plans to do this. We got China. China's putting a rover there next month in December. It's going to be driving all around the dark side of the moon. We have Elon Musk. He's going to put people. He's going to put a colony on Mars in 2020. You know? He's going to be there. So NASA has made this great showpiece, this great production, and it is good. And I hope they fulfill these promises. But at the end of the day, what are they really doing? They're making an entertaining video. Great.
Okay, Frank.
I'm speechless.
Let me help you.
I'm speechless. I want them to do these things instead of telling us they're going to do these things.
I'm going to get on my
I think that's
soapbox.
what rubbed me the wrong way with this video. What do you think about that?
I think I have a tear in my eye. And I think, for the first time in my life, my tax dollars have been well spent on this video. On this video. Not what they say they're going to do, but on this video. This is amazing. I'm gonna just loop this for like the next week. So if there's no shows for the next week, you guys know what I'm doing. Sorry. It's just that good. It is just that good. I jest, of course.
It is that good. It is. But if they actually do what they say they're going to do, amazing. Absolutely amazing. And I'm excited, and I agree with you completely. But we have to see them doing it first. Like this fancy video, great, whatever. I want to see them doing these things. Because I think you're right. If this is their plan, if they actually plan to move forward in the near future, this is amazing. But what have they been doing for the last 60 years? A whole lot of nothing.
There you go. We got some comments talking about NASA stands for never a straight answer from quite a few people here. Todd, also right on point, says, and after 60 years, you're still using 50-year-old rocket technology. Good job. Good game, NASA. But at least the video's good, guys. Come on. You got to give it up. This video is pretty impressive. Those drums, man, like those boom, 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 spot on. Kind of, like I said, makes me want to grab that screwdriver and go to war. Let's get the aliens. Let's get them. Okay, so if you guys want to talk about this or the previous UFO over Ireland or show feedback, you want to say hi to Frank and Mike, open lines. It is November 18th, 2018, and the number to call is 702-957-1037. We're watching for calls throughout the show. You can click the Discord link in Little Green Men and tell us what you think about this video. Is it that good? Or we just did they brainwash Frank and I in a 2-minute, 20-second video? Is it over? Are we going to go join the Space Force? I might actually transmit my my application to the Academy tonight. What do you think?
I mean, yeah, like I'm tempted to as well. That would be amazing to do these things, and that video does get you pumped up. I just want to see it happen for real, though. Another point about that video, quick point. When we started the show, none of this was out there. Isn't that interesting? None of this was really out there. They weren't talking about doing any of this. And now fast forward, 4 or 5 months, we're seeing them all put these plans into place. So it's interesting the little coincidences that happen, because this wasn't happening. We were here the entire time. We've seen this evolution. We've seen all these different countries, all these different agencies start making these plans in the last 6 months. So I don't know what's happening, but it's exciting. No matter what way you look at it, if it's not NASA, it'll be Russia. If it's not Russia, it'll be SpaceX. It'll be someone. This is happening. It's exciting overall. NASA itself, a little bit of a letdown, but overall, I'm very optimistic for what's going to happen in the next 10 years.
Yeah, and I think it's funny. We've talked about this previously, how NASA actually is trying to take credit, or at least put their tentacles into SpaceX and the Virgin, what were they called? Blue Origin, and these other companies that are actually going into space, right? Like NASA's kind of starting to posture themselves to put their tentacles in and kind of take credit for when things happen. At the, what were they doing? They were advising on the process, or they were they were offering data from previous space flights to make sure that SpaceX does it safely this time, or what have you. I don't know. You know what I mean? It's I just want to play this video again. Can we just play this video? Just loop it for the rest of the show.
It's a really good video.
It's a really good video.
Again, it's a really good video, but I want them to do these things instead of just making cool videos.
Yeah, exactly. Well, come on. So I'm not even sure, let's say 60 years, what's been a NASA budget? It's been hundreds of millions for sure, billions more likely. And yeah, I mean, if it culminates in this sweet video, yes. Okay, anyway, I'll stop making fun. Okay, so got some comments. Thanks, guys. You guys are amazing. Keep the comments coming. We'll read them as we go. But if you want to get your thought on the program, 702-957-1037. We're watching for calls. Click the Discord link. We're watching for people to hop in there and tell us what they think. Does this video get you guys pumped up? Do you want to join the Space Force? Are you transmitting your application to the Academy tonight with me? Are we doing this? Let's go, guys. Let's get hyped up. Let's get our tinfoil hats and let's go get those aliens. I'm telling you, they don't stand a chance. They don't stand a chance. Anyway, okay. Whoa, settle down, Mike.
Whoa, the xenophobia is out of control here. But I agree with you, actually. I completely agree. I think we'll see tonight is these aliens aren't as smart as they think they are. They're crashing in the desert. They're crashing in the ocean. They're just not very intelligent. So I think we do stand a chance, despite what's...
Exactly. Got a lot of guys coming in. Here, I'm going to link the video because if I play this video one more time, we're done. I'm going to just loop it, and this game
pull up the Space Force.
Exactly.
Start applying.
Exactly. So we got a request here to play the video again. So I linked it. There you go. You can watch it yourself and play it over and over because trust me. Okay, so if you guys got comments on this, you know what to do. Give us a call. We're going to move on unless Frank has anything else. But here we go. NASA has spent our money well. and gave us this amazing 2-minute, 23-second video and pumped us up. Let's join the Space Force. Let's do it. Let's do it. All right. What's the next one?
Let's move on. Quick one here from Forbes. Days away from Mars, NASA awaits the 7 minutes of terror. So what are the 7 minutes of terror? NASA is landing their InSight lander on Monday, November 26th at 11:47 a.m., which is Pacific time, 2:47 p.m. Eastern. So November 26th, they're landing this InSight rover. It's not really a rover. This is the thing that's going to measure seismic data on Mars. It also has a drill, I believe. But they're going to live stream the entire thing, apparently. So November 26th, 11:47 a.m. PST, 2:47 p.m. EST. We'll cover it, of course. But yeah, they're going to land this thing, and hopefully it all goes well. There's some issues, some thoughts about if they're going to crash, if the angle of approach is too high, what the problems are. But just a quick story here. So they are landing something on Mars, a new device, and hopefully we'll get some good data out of it. Or maybe they're just shipping it up to northern Canada, where the rovers are right now. We'll see. But I'm going to tune into this live stream. I hope it's entertaining. We'll see. We'll see. So we'll cover that in
When's this one happen? This is next week. This is next Sunday, right?
Yeah, November 26th, which is, next week.
Okay. So it's going to be, in the morning. Okay. Got it. All right. I'll be working. But if you guys can watch this, we're going to talk about this for sure, what the live stream looks like. So if you guys want to tune into this, the actual time right here says November 26th, the Monday after Thanksgiving at 11:47 a.m. Pacific time. 2:47 Eastern, and they're going to live stream this sucker. So if you want to check it out, let's see if NASA, with their huge budget, can match this live stream with our no budget. let's see. I dare them to be this entertaining. I jest, of course. Okay, so moving on from this one. Anything else, Frank, or anybody else have comments about this? You know what to do. Give us a call, 702-957-1037. Click the link in Discord. We'll put you on the show. Okay. Thanks, Todd's being our Discord fairy, spreading the link around. We appreciate that. And all right. So okay. Anything else on this, Frank, or move on to the next one?
Let's move on to the next.
Okay. So I got this one. This is kind of a little bit boring, but it is pertinent to what's happening here. This is reported by digitaltrends.com, and they say a super Earth discovered orbiting a nearby star. Now, okay, this isn't really news because they've discovered tons of these things, right? Was it Kepler that just got retired? Was like a discovering planets like crazy. But this one in particular is only 4.3 light years away. So that is actually tantalizingly close enough for us to maybe get there before humans die out. Or, I don't know. Anyway, you get the point. So, apart from the Alpha Centauri system, which consists of 3 stars and is around, that one's 4.3 light years. Bernard star is the next nearest star at 6 light years. Okay, so that's where this one is. So it's 6 light years away. My bad. I crisscrossed them. But you get the point, right? So we actually maybe have a chance to get to some sort of exoplanet and maybe start having a look at this thing to see if it's actually, what would you say, capable of human habitation. That would be nice, wouldn't it?
Yeah, we could send a probe to this thing easy. So 6 light years, again, that sounds like a lot. You put that into perspective, but with these new on, you can get there in 20 years, a human lifetime for certain. You could buzz by that thing if you don't slow down. So if you just speed up and you're just speeding up the entire way, you can get there in 10 years. Take some quick photographs as you're flying by it, a fraction of light speed. But, we could load people up on a ship, and provided they had food and water and all this kind of stuff, we could get there in 20 years, no problem, with these new technologies, these new ion drives. So this is definitely within the realm of possibility, and it's exciting to see that they're calling these things candidate planets. Normally they're pretty cynical on these things. They say, we don't know, we're not certain, but it looks like they have some good information on this planet, some good data. We just need a probe to buzz by and take some picture.
Yeah, there you go. And hopefully it's not inhabited by bugs like in the Starship Troopers. You guys know that movie, right? Oh, there we go. There we go. They're saying it in the chat here. The Droop says the only good bug is the dead bug. What's up, Droop? Thanks for showing up. And Nick, Rico's Roughnecks, Starship Troopers. So hopefully it's not inhabited by those giant bugs. But if it's not, I think, you know what, though? I think it's too improbable for it to be lifeless. Like literally humans just kind of in a dream world. We float up in our little spaceship after, the stasis in space, and we wake everybody up from hibernation, and we just descend down onto this planet and start, planting seeds and farming. You know what I mean? That sounds ridiculous. There's no way. Like, we're going to get there and there's going to be some heinous stuff on that planet, I promise you. Mark it down. I said it today. Okay. Anyway, the next one, this is the most fascinating. Anything else here, Frank, before we move on?
Yeah, just a kind of a hypothetical. If I were in charge, and maybe this is a testament to why I shouldn't be in charge, but if I saw some aliens on this planet, probe buzzes by, we see bugs down there. I'm shooting an asteroid at that planet, Climate will clear up and, it'll make it more habitable for us. I'm not going down there. I'm not doing any diplomacy. I'm nuking the aliens, and then we're taking over. That's my perspective. What do you think?
Maybe. I mean, maybe. But who knows? You guys have read Ender's Game, right? Maybe we can be friends. Maybe we can just meet the queen bee, the queen hive, den mother, and shake hands, spit on your hand, shake her tentacle or her claw or whatever it is, and then maybe it'll be good. Maybe they'll share. You never know. Maybe humans are
too
just
much of a
risk.
It's really too much of a risk. Think about what you're putting at risk. Your entire species. Better just to get rid of them and take over. That's my perspective.
Okay. That's why Todd agrees. That's why Frank will never be in charge. Okay. So yeah. All right. So there we go. So if you guys have comments on the Super Earth, you know what to do. 702-957-1037. And one more. I thought this was curious. So we've talked about the Parker Solar Probe, right? And I couldn't quite, we've kind of postulated some things, like what could we possibly gain from this other than sending an actual dumpster full of money into the sun? Like we said, we've got solar observatories on the planet that on one side of the world or the other can watch the sun 24 hours a day. Okay, we can share data with the other observatories, and what else can we learn from getting close to the sun short of melting our satellite that we send, right? Well, I saw this article. I found this article. What do you think about this one, Frank? This is crazy. So this is reported by Gizmodo, one of my least favorites, but every once in a while they got a nugget. And this title is, let's put it up on the stream, a powerful solar storm likely detonated dozens of U.S. sea mines during the Vietnam War. Okay. Now, the only thing that I could possibly think of for sending a probe that close to the sun to get additional data would be some kind of military advantage. And here we go. We have actual leaked government documents. I'm not sure if this was Freedom of Information released or if this was some kind of leak, but here's the data. There's actual bombs that were detonated from a sun flare, from a mini Carrington event is what they're called, which is super bad news for technology, obviously. So I don't know. What do you think? So suddenly now the Parker Solar Probe to me seems like if we get close and we start dropping things into the sun, maybe it's sound waves, maybe it's nukes, maybe it's, who knows, right? Maybe we try and give it a little push one way on, 30 degrees off from where we want, and we can actually force a sunspot or a sun flare, solar flare, a coronal mass ejection, as they are called. I don't know. So if this is a thing, like it's an actual military advantage, imagine the Earth is spinning, right? We have the Parker Solar Probe that does something. It sends a signal, something to the sun, and in a particular spot at a particular frequency, it drops a sun flare right on Russia and fries their entire half of the world, electronically speaking. Not burns it, but takes down satellites. Of course, we'd move ours out of the way, etc. You know what I mean? Anyway, am I off the rails here, Frank? Help me out.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea, using the sun as a weapon. So, it would be nighttime in the U.S., it would be daytime in China, and we time this thing such that, oh, too bad, China. Now you have a Carrington event. All your electronics are dead. All your cars, all your tanks, all your guns, they don't work anymore.
Right, and so it doesn't necessarily...
Or, yeah, I don't know how...
You cut out, so that's why I went in. Go ahead.
Yeah, Discord issues. Yeah, so again, this is a very interesting idea. I don't know how they would do it, but of course they would never tell us if they could do it. But yeah, using the sun as a weapon is very interesting.
Yeah, and so when you get a Carrington event, it doesn't necessarily hit and only affect the spot that it hits, because it, the Earth has a magnetic field. It will carry around. But if you can actually control the power of the coronal mass ejection to be just enough to maybe affect a particular part of the Earth, I think maybe we might be onto something here with the Parker Solar Probe. So we're going to keep an eye on that, because again, we made fun over and over and said, what the heck? These guys are just sending money. They're burning it up in the sun, whatever. What else do we need to know about this thing? Well, apparently there's a lot more the sun's doing that they're not telling us. If it's affecting U.S. sea mines in the Vietnam War, that's a big thing. That's a thing. It's official. Right here, reported by Gizmodo, but these are leaked from actual government documents. So there we go. A couple comments, and we'll move on from this and start with the UFOs. But Larry says, how much stress would Nibiru have on the sun? That's a good question. If you get me measurements of Nibiru, we can forward that to the nearest astrophysicist and ask. Todd says, using the sun that we have no way of controlling and send nukes into it to make it unstable and destroy us all. Good plan. Yes, good plan. Good plan, right? But again, if you guys have an idea, like we said we've asked for ideas. What other purpose could the Parker Solar Probe have? Okay, so now we know a lot about the sun. Okay, we do, but now they're sending a probe close to get it very, very close. Okay, so I don't know what. If you guys have ideas, you know what to do. Give us a call, 702-957-1037. Click the Discord link. We'll put you on. We'll talk about this and other things. Anything else about this one, Frank?
I'm leaning towards more of an advanced detection type scenario where having this probe there will let us know if a Carrington event happens again. Now, what is a Carrington event? Just a brief recap. 1859, I believe, there was this geomagnetic storm. It hit the Earth. The telegraph wires they were using to communicate, because there wasn't too many electronics back then, the telegraph wires caught fire. And so they burned down buildings. It completely destroyed anything electronic, anything with wires in it. Gone, destroyed, melted. If that kind of thing were to happen today, well, think about it. Your power would go out. Your water would go out. You're going to hop in your car to drive to the store to get some food. Too bad you can't, unless you have a muscle car from the 1960s. The trucks that bring your food to the grocery store, they won't work. So the entire world will shut down if something like this happens again. So having this probe there is some kind of advanced warning system, such that the elite can scurry off to their bunkers and go underground. I think that's more likely. Yeah, it's a more likely.
Okay, except that article kind of sniffs us out in a different direction. But anyway, what do you guys think? A couple ideas here. Early detection of a Carrington event, or are they actually trying to use some sort of something to control the sun as some sort of military advantage over adversaries? It's a good question, right? I think it's a good question. I think it's fascinating. First, I thought this was a joke, and now I'm like, okay, wait a minute. I see what they may be up to here, so we'll keep an eye and see if anything else comes clunking out from the government. But we'll keep an eye. We'll see what. We do have bets on the Parker Solar burning up pretty quick, right? I'm pretty sure those were where we put our money.
I think so. I think that's going to make one pass, and then they're going to lose sight of it. But of course, if they had some nefarious plan for it, they would definitely lose sight of it. So who knows? We'll keep an eye on it. We'll keep you up.
There you go. We'll get as much information as we can anyway. Okay, so we're about to do some UFO crashes. So if remember, guys, so if you want the show to blow up, help us, please like, share, do those things. Let your friends, family, enemies know. Bring them here. Put them in the chat. We'll talk about UFOs. We'll all rub elbows and have a good time. So there we go. That's the news for tonight. And the reason we do actual news guys is because, we've said this a lot, but the regular news, if you turn on any other program anywhere in the whole world, basically, they're basically trying to brainwash you. They're trying to, this stuff is like just kind of a highlight to get clicks, but, they leave information out and whatever, but we think it's important to talk about these things because this is the future of the human race. Like we are not going to survive if we stay on this rock. It's a matter of a super volcano, like I've said, a giant war, or a meteor that we don't see, and that's that. It's a wrap, guys. All this is done. That would really inhibit our ability to stream the next show. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense? So anyway, we think this news is important.
And yeah, a Carrington event, it would be Mad Max in no time. People would be fighting each other for groceries in the grocery store. That's just how it would be. That would end the world. So there's so many things that could end the world. And I think we've been lucky, quite frankly, that it hasn't happened yet. Seemingly, through our, study of history and study of ancient cultures, this kind of stuff has happened before. It has wiped out the human race, and we've rebuilt to this point. And it would be a shame to do it all over again.
Agreed. A couple good comments here about this sun thing, and then we're going to move on. Fred says it could be to keep track of large UFOs, and then Kelly adds to that is a jump gate. They might be wanting to track UFOs coming and going. So there we go. A couple folks in the chat that concur on a possible scenario here of what the Parker probe is actually doing. Todd says, if we can control the sun, what the hell are we still doing on Earth using rocket fuels? Well, maybe that's the thing. Maybe it's like Todd Lazar. Bob Lazar said, maybe we can use we can harness these exotic materials like the plasma of the sun to power the next generation of vehicles, which might be reverse engineered UFOs. Who knows? Okay. Here we are. We're just, live streaming. Okay, so if you guys got comments, keep them coming. I will read them as we can. But right now, we're going to do the show. So, where are we at, Frank? What are we starting with?
Let's start out with a brief history lesson. So there was this thing that was leaked, Majestic 12. So this was a code name of an alleged secret society of scientists, military leaders, government officials, and it was formed, this group, Majestic 12, by apparently Harry Truman in 1947. And the entire goal of this thing was to get these military leaders, the scientists, and the government together to investigate UFO crashes. Because this kind of stuff, in doing our research, UFOs are not just crashing in Roswell, New Mexico. They're crashing in Canada. They're crashing in Russia, Australia. They're crashing in the middle of the ocean. You'd think these UFOs were, the pilots are drinking or something, because they're crashing all over the place. So this Majestic 12 is this kind of group they put together to go and harvest these remains, to look into them. Now, they've said this thing is bogus, that there was no actual Majestic 12. But the theory that there could be a group whose sole responsibility was to go investigate these crashes makes sense. It makes sense that they put together a system to look at these things, to find these things, and to take away the parts. So I think that's something important to know, is that, we talk about UFO crashes, but it does seem that the government's onto this. They've put together this Majestic 12 team to go and look for these things and break them apart and take them away for further study.
Which is a fact. And right after Roswell in 47, Eisenhower as well started covering everything up in national security as the guys. So everything kind of matches there. Everything lines up to, this is the reason. These are the reasons why we have the FOIA now, and they tell us nothing. Because it was designed to tell us nothing. So there we are.
Yeah, so just keep that in mind, is it does seem that they're, like, if an alien crashes, of course, the government's going to be onto it. They're going to be taking the information. They're going to have plans in place. It's the only responsible thing to do, quite frankly. So keep that in mind. There is a framework for this in place. So let's actually move on to some of these stories about UFO crashes, what happens, what kind of evidence they gather, what kind of sighting reports people on the scene have. Do you want to start, or should I?
Go ahead and do the one you got. That's a big one here.
Okay, so let's look at one. Again, we all know about Roswell. We know there was a crash there. Supposedly they harvested pieces of the ship and stuff like that. So that's the big famous one. But again, this kind of stuff is happening all over the entire world, different countries. In the middle of the ocean, we found a few there. So it's not just in New Mexico, it's all over the place. So I pulled one up here, Shag Harbor. This is a town in Nova Scotia in Canada. And I found this pretty interesting because it's a very rural environment. So the clips we'll play from this, you got people with that Nova Scotia accent, you can barely understand them. And they're fishermen, they're farmers, they're, not people, they're not looking for book deals, they're not looking for television appearances. These are just people telling you what they see. And I think you can draw a lot from that. If you have a blogger talking about a UFO or some YouTuber talking about seeing a UFO, there's a secondary motive there. But these guys, you'll hear one guy here who charges out into his fishing boat to rescue what he thought was people from a crashed plane. It's very believable in my mind. So this event happened in 1967, Shag Harbor, Nova Scotia. Let's play the first clip, and that kind of describes the first sighting of what people saw there.
Back on the night of October 4th there, after leaving the front door of the house and racing down through the adjacent streets at breakneck speed, around to the corner there of the nearby warehouse, and made my way over the tracks here to get a vantage point to see what was moving along the harbor. I remember standing there utterly terrified. I had the sense that I wasn't supposed to be here, I wasn't to be this close. And this huge orange sphere was simply tracing the shoreline a ways out, coming directly toward me. I kind of felt as if it would be like a dog when you run from it, it would suddenly pounce on you. I literally felt cold inside. I can remember it was one of the few times in my life I felt real fear, and the difference. It's like when people discuss the difference between hunger and sugar hunger, something that few people in North America truly know.
There you go. That cut off a little weird. Gustavo, he says, hi, I'm late. What are we talking about tonight? Hey, what's up? UFO crashes, man. We're in Shag Harbor right now. There was a fisherman describing what he saw on that night in Shag Harbor. A orange globe crashed into the ocean, and additional shenanigans to follow.
Yeah, and this visceral sense of fear he felt. So this is a guy, I think he was a kid at the time. He's in his house. He sees this orange glow coming, and he runs down to the harbor, and he looks, and he sees a UFO kind of paralleling the coastline. And a bunch of his friends, I think he ran down there with his friends too, in different reports of this, and they saw it too. And they didn't see it crash, this particular fellow, but we'll get to that. And then this guy, anyway, later, his grandpa actually calls him up and he says, oh, I saw these lights out there. So everyone saw this. This was one of these mass sightings, and everyone had seen it. So let's play two. Let's talk about the actual crash. Second clip.
One of the first witnesses Chris talked to was a fisherman named Laurie Wickens.
We was driving up through Shag Harbor, headed towards Woods Harbor, taking the girls home that were with us.
On the night of the UFOs, young Wickens and some of his friends were driving home from a dance.
We happened to look off to our right. I think I noticed them first and see some lights flashing in the sky. One would be on, then another one, then the four would be on, then they'd all go off, then that sequence would start over. We thought it was an airplane, although the lights were different than any planes that we had seen, but I still figured it was an airplane at the height and stuff and the speed it was flying.
The strange flashing lights followed the car along the highway for some time. Wickens thought the plane was in trouble.
It's flying this way, tips that way, but we're coming into a hill, so we can't, we lose sight of it at the bottom of the hill, and when we get to the top of the hill, it's in the water. And we figured it was a plane crash, so we went to the nearest phone booth and called the RCMP.
There you go. They called the, he does sound Irish. They called the, what do you say, RTB? RCB? What is that?
I think it's the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. So that, like, their FBI, maybe. I think that's, I'm not too familiar with it.
He
anyway,
called, like,
yeah,
the Moose.
That clip's the, pardon me?
They called the Moose Brigade to handle this.
Yeah, the horse riding police guys. Anyway, So I think that clip was hilarious. Again, so you'll hear there, he says he's bringing girls back from the bar, right? He's driving along, he's having a good time, and he sees these shining lights, and they're kind of oscillating in a different pattern. And he's going down a hill, so he loses sight of it. And then when he crests back up the hill, he sees this thing crash into the water. So again, it's not just one person. This is the entire town saw this thing. Orange lights, green lights in the sky, crashing into the water. So they call the police, or the federal police, I guess they are, and they start investigating. So the first thing they do is actually send some people out there. Now remember, this isn't a big town. This is essentially in the middle of nowhere, in a very, very rural area. So they don't have a lot of resources available. So they call the local fishermen to get out in their boats and go investigate. So let's play clip 3 and see what happens.
The RCMP relied on local fishermen for help. Lawrence Smith was on his way to bed when he received an urgent phone call.
He said, I think we've got a plane down the sound. I said, oh my God, a plane. First thing I thought of was people in the water. We got out by the Market Boys and up through the rocks and out by the Prospect Point Wharf, and then we opened her up full speed.
Smith and his crew were the first to get underway. Soon, other fishermen raced to the scene, joining Smith in the search.
We got there, no lights, no people in the water where we thought there would be from a plane crash, and all we found was foam.
Instead of wreckage, rescuers encountered a peculiar patch of foam that stretched for over half a mile in length.
And it was very disturbing. There was a little smell like sulfur, burnt sulfur.
Several local fishermen who witnessed the foam felt most strongly that this was not normal tidal foam. Besides the fact that they're acquainted with the local conditions, I mean, there were several key features that just made it just stand apart. The sparkle, the way it dissipated, the sheer amount of it and the density of it implied something quite unusual.
I have been fishing that area for 45 years. I have never seen any foam like that ever on the water. And if you were motoring out through, going fishing, and you went through something like that, you would stop and say, "What's been going on here?"
There it is. This is a salt of the earth, God-fearing type of good citizen. Like, he sees a crash. He's a fisherman, and the first thing he thinks is, OMG, there might be people out there. So he rounds up his buddies, they jump in their boats, and they go because they're trying to save lives, right? How alien does that sound in today's smartphone age, let's say? But they go, and they don't see wreckage, but they do see a peculiar foam, which is alien to this guy because he's been fishing these waters for 45 years. So, curious, no?
Pretty interesting. And again, remember, I think this case is different because it's not a government response. It's not a military response. You know, it's not the first responders on the scene or police or military or something else. The first responders on the scene here are citizens because this is out in the middle of nowhere. So that's the only thing they can do. The only resources they have available are the people in the area. And so all these stories coming out, they haven't cordoned off the area. They haven't blocked people from looking at it because they can't. There's no way to do it. So I think we're getting more of the truth in this situation. Now, again, this he said he's on the water 45 years. He knows the ocean. You know, he's the stereotypical fisherman. And this strange foam he sees coming up, it's like a yellowy, he described it in other accounts, kind of like a very strange pattern. And it left a trail too. Now, keep that in mind. It left a trail. That'll be important later. Now, there were a couple of other reports I didn't clip out here, but other people on the shoreline seemed to see lights emanating from under the water. So they saw the surface of the water illuminated in some way, but no planes or helicopters above the water. So this light source was coming from underneath the water. And they saw this light source moving along in a pattern. So again, keep that in mind that this thing was moving underwater. It may have crashed, but it was still moving, which kind of reminds me of that clip we played the other day where, what was that, Lake Titicaca?
That's the one.
I hope I'm saying that right. We saw an amorphous mass underneath this thing moving under the water. So again, 1967 to current day, we're seeing UFOs moving under the water. Let's play clip 4 and see what happens.
On October the 7th, 2 days after the crash, Navy divers from HMCS Granby started searching the bottom of Shag Harbor for wreckage. But what this wreckage might be remained unspecified. The waters off Shag Harbor are shallow and the currents are strong. The Navy divers knew if the wreckage had not been swept out to sea, they would soon find it.
Now, as it turned out, they stayed on the dive until Sunday night, so that they'd done 2.5 days on the dive before they packed up and took whatever they had into an old deuce-and-a-half Army vehicle they called Old Sid.
They come in around noontime. They had a package, which they brought in and put in the Navy divers' van, and they left, and that was the end of all the diving.
Residents of Shag Harbor claim they watched as the military hauled something out of the harbor.
When they quizzed the divers about what this was, the divers simply responded by claiming that these things were markers they used on the bottom to keep their orientation. It's hard to imagine that you would have markers that would have in their description constituted a hazard when you're under the water. They were simply quite jagged, twisted, etc. It just doesn't line up.
Strangely enough, if you go by the military documents, the divers found nil. That's not a bit of anything. Nothing in the water.
Nothing in the water except some peculiar foam and some odd lights traveling down at the bottom of the harbor. Okay, this sounds like an official response to the calamity here. What do you think?
Yeah, note the change there. So the citizens, the entire town sees this thing crashing. The fishermen see these strange phenomena occurring, and then the military gets involved, and all of a sudden there's nothing there. Don't worry about it. Nothing to see here. Move on. That's this story, this system they have in place. Is they'll suppress all the information, they'll shut it down. So again, very different, because the initial response was the citizens, and the secondary response was the military. Where if it was the military the entire time, I don't think we'd be talking about this today. Everything would be suppressed. So they took something out of the water. Never found out what it was. We never learned anything about it, unfortunately. But again, interesting. They talk about the tide moving this thing out, and they talk about that trail of foam. So it seemed like this thing, even though it crashed in Shag Harbor, was moving, whether under its own power or due to the tide dragging it out into the deeper ocean. Now, we do have one piece of evidence, this photograph. So here's a guy, I think I posted in there, it's like the purple and red looking thing. We can pull that up. This guy, Don Ledger, yeah, he was on the boat, he was on the beach burning an old boat, because I guess that's what they do in the country. And he was, scrounging around for firewood, burning this old boat, and he took a photograph, and he set it for a 5-minute exposure. And so he put it on a rock. Actually, he put this thing down on a rock, this camera. He put a rock over top of it to hold the button down. And then he took this long exposure shot here. And so people have analyzed this photograph, and basically what they see is these, smear type patterns are the stars moving in the sky. So you see a bunch of them. They're kind of like a long smear type pattern. And those are stars moving in the sky. But these other lights, these lights that stay in position, that's what this guy saw about 5 minutes, or maybe it was about an hour before the UFO crash. So this photograph, again, was taken before the UFO crash, and these individual points of light in this 5-minute exposure shot, this guy is saying are some kind of UFO, something in the sky, not moving, just kind of hovering there. You see what I mean?
Yeah, and definitely we got a couple different colors here. So we got a purple, and it looks like the stars behind it on the left side. Is that correct? And then we have a red. Is the red fire just below it, or are those two different UFO type things?
So I think the red on the very bottom is the town. That's just a long exposure shot of the lights in the town. The kind of white smears in the background are the stars moving in the sky. But on the very left-hand side of this photograph, the yellowy light and the purple light are apparently some kind of stationary objects hovering there that were picked up during this long 5-minute exposure.
Okay, I see. Interesting. You guys looking at this? So this is actual evidence of Shag Harbor here. And it looks like this may have been what crashed in the harbor, except it was before the crash and it's in the air. Odd, don't you think, that it crashes in the air, from the air into the actual water, and then continues to move underwater. I don't know that we have anything that would actually be able to do both of those things. I mean, crash, of course, but fly and then also move underwater just doesn't work like that. At least not from what they tell us.
Yep, for sure. Let's play clip 5 here. This is from the photographer. He explains it better than I could, but again, 1967, terrible photographs. But he sees lights in the sky immediately preceding the crash. So let's play.
Photographer Wilfred Eisner was yet another witness to the strange lights in the sky.
They were there for a reason. There's no doubt about that. And there were more people that seen them than myself.
Eisner and 2 of his friends were burning an old boat on Mason's Beach, east of Shag Harbor.
On one of these times when I went for driftwood, I noticed a couple lights in the sky. I thought it was kind of curious. And I thought, well, better take a picture of them.
He had planned to take photos of his boat for posterity, but instead, he captured what may be the only existing photograph of the UFOs.
Well, that's it, right above where them people are.
The 5-minute time exposure he took that night yields interesting details about the nature of the objects.
First time I saw this slide, I was really impressed with the detail on it. Maybe you can explain the streaks and the colored lights in the middle of the picture itself?
Well, the streaks, Don, were made, as you can see, by the stars, and that would be the length of the exposure, because the Earth is moving. And these 3 lights are obviously stationary, and they have left no streaks whatsoever. The 3rd light would have appeared to me, I would presume, at this point in time, as a star.
Right, yeah.
You see.
Yeah.
But then it left no streak, so it was a stationary object for that duration of the exposure.
It's not a helicopter or any such object. The helicopter couldn't hover in position like that and stay that way for 5 or 7 minutes without moving and blurring the image. It's quite incredible.
Yeah.
Well, Chris Stahl and I figure this photograph is significant in the fact that it took place about an hour before the Shag Harbor incident.
And there's the photographer and additional friends and colleagues parsing this thing and saying that this is probably the UFO. This is the evidence, huh? This is what we got. That's pretty much it, huh, Frank?
Yep. In terms of physical evidence, that's about it, unfortunately. Again, though, I think there's weight to this eyewitness testimony in that it was the citizenry first on the scene. They saw everything before anyone else, before the military kind of shut it down. So interesting that we do have some evidence. We have something in the sky around that time. Think about what these people are doing. The one guy, he's driving back from the bar with some girls in his truck. You know, this guy, he's on the beach burning a boat for whatever reason. So these are down-to-earth people, right? They're not, you know, they have their own things going on out in the country. So to me, I don't know, that makes it more impressive somehow. I don't know what you think about that. Also, the music in the documentary I clipped this out of is pretty good.
It's spooky. I was gonna comment on those steel drums. Pretty amazing. Like boom, boom. I very much like. Yes, good stuff. We got some chat talking about all kinds of stuff about loud noises in the sky out where they live, about noises being carried across the water in New Jersey, and the cops being called hundreds of times, and the Coast Guard actually looking into it. That's Millie saying this stuff, and they can't find the area. It's like loud music all hours of the night, kind of over the water, and nobody can figure out where it's coming from. Maybe there's your alien base right there. Maybe, who knows? Who knows? We need some links on that so we can get some scientific stuff that isn't Mike just laughing. But it's yeah. There you go. Tons of good comments. We got loud noises in the sky. We got mysterious noises floating across the water. And yeah, what do you guys think about Shag Harbor? We're talking about Shag Harbor. We're talking about a UFO. This is Canada's Roswell, basically. So this is one of the most famous ones that happened in the Pacific or Atlantic Northeast. Let's say that's more accurate. And this thing crashed in the water and floated around underneath. You could see it from up above, some kind of glowing orb. The military comes out, they pick this thing up, and they take it away. And here we go. We have this photograph as evidence. Yeah, good stuff, huh? Good stuff.
Now, there was a radar station nearby, military radar station. So people started saying, hey, did you see anything at this station? Did you see any radar returns around this time? What was in the air? What was in the sky? So a bunch of people went to the radar station. They start querying these guys. They start asking them. And of course, they don't say anything. They say nothing at all. Except later, in later years, of course, someone leaks the details, talks about it when they're told not to. Let's play clip 6 and see what the radar officer.
A former staff member of the Barrington radar station breaks this military code of silence.
It had involved a lot of people. It was a big event. And they had thought that it was something out of the normal. And everybody inside that room knew what had happened that night and were held to secrets.
He was briefed by his commanding officer about what the radar actually detected that night.
He had seemed to think that it had entered the airspace somewhere in northwestern Canada and it sort of wobbled through the atmosphere until it limped into Atlantic Canada. That it almost hit an airplane somewhere outside of Quebec, and that it had crash landed in Shag Harbor, that there was another one tending it, and that after the event, they both had moved.
Did the military know that there were in fact 2 UFOs in Shag Harbor, and that they'd left the impact site submerged, coming to rest off the coast near a top-secret military base 30 miles away?
I think that perhaps if there is evasion, and if perhaps there's a coordinated cover-up, then somebody somewhere had to be smart enough that that little light bulb went on and they said, look, what better way? We got a bonus situation here to cover up a UFO attempted recovery operation 30 miles away than say, yes, guess what? We think a UFO crashed, and have everybody and all the cameras pointed at the impact site. However, it still is hard to fathom. And as much as I dislike the story, and still dislike the story, I had to make sense of it, and I certainly had to make it known.
Get the word out. Have to make it known right now. If you allow this to happen and people to cover this stuff up, then possibly the greatest thing that humans could ever actually, what would you say, fathom. It's literally, what could you think of this actually greater than UFO disclosure? I don't know. It's pretty up there.
At this point, nothing. And we see this going on even now with things like Oumuamua, with things like this Irish UFO sighting, is there's been disclosure of some kind. Some information has come out, and they have to suppress it any way they can. And they do that by lying, essentially. They make up things, they exaggerate the facts, and then they debunk those exaggerations. And when you read these news articles, you don't get any information out of it. But here, again, it's interesting because the primary source of the information isn't coming from the establishment. It's coming from these people in this small town who are, burning boats on the shoreline and doing all sorts of stuff. So it's an interesting way to look at it, that when people see it, you get a story. When the government sees it, you get nothing. Again, I don't know what to think. To me, that's what makes this entire thing compelling. Now, in that clip, they talk about this thing moving, being dragged out or moving under its own power to another area. And that's interesting because, again, they're focusing all on Shag Harbor. They're looking at this area. But this thing, again, it left this trail of foam in the ocean. So it was moving along to somewhere else. And Now we're getting more details about 2 UFOs. There's actually 2 sightings in the sky. And that picture, again, you see 2 lights. You see a yellowy light and you see a purple light. So there's 2 UFOs apparently, and they're kind of working together in unison, maybe to repair one another. Who knows what. Let's play clip number 7 to finish.
Military personnel already knew that the object was no longer there on the seabed, that it had moved away under the water, rounded Cape Sable Island, had gone up the coast and come to rest on the seabed off the coast of Government Point, which was the location of CFS Shelburne, Canada's most secret military base.
Canadian Forces Base Shelburne was a joint Canadian-American military base, shut down after the thawing of the Cold War.
Over the years, a cover story had been put out to explain this base away as being an oceanographical study base to study wave action, the depth of water, salinity of water, whatever, supposedly to aid the navies of both our countries in better understanding the ocean. And it wasn't until really in the 80s that it really became known as for what it really was, which was a secret submarine detection base, detecting submarines all over the North Atlantic.
The operation was part of the SUSO system, an underwater network of microphones deployed throughout the North Atlantic. The signals were channeled ashore to CFS Shelburne at Government Point, where they were monitored 24 hours a day.
And so somehow they sneak this thing in there next to the submarine base, and they have no information to release, right? I think that's
yeah. So this is the interesting point here, is maybe this thing didn't crash at all. Maybe it dived down in Shag Harbor, went underneath the ocean, and is sneaking up on this military base to tap into these technologies. They got all these listening posts. It's all connected through this one joint American-Canadian base. And so this thing is sneaking up right on top of it. So a crash or on purpose, we're not sure. But again, we know 2 UFOs. One dives in the water. The other joins it later. And they're leaving this trail of foam, this yellowy foam. And they're going towards this very sensitive location. So again, this is reminiscent of these stories where you'll see UFOs over nuclear launch sites and power going out over bases where you see these UFOs. Interesting little set of details here. Actually, we do have one more clip where the divers, so the radar officer, there's a big deal going on, but some of the divers who were down in the water looking for this thing, they leak some details too. So let's play the final clip here, number 8, and we'll.
Meanwhile, Navy divers dove on the primary target.
What divers told me simply was that there was an operation at the mouth of Shelburne Harbor, and they held station on ships and dove over a period of 1 week over what was an apparent UFO on the bottom, and that it was being assisted by a second craft that was somehow lending assistance to it. One of the expressions they used was that there was still activity going on down there. These men claimed to have been in the water and watched us at a fairly close range as they were placing cameras and sensors, etc. It's an incredible tale.
Not only did they see objects down there, but they saw things as well. And we sort of have to leave that to your own imagination as to what these things were. They're certain, or at least this particular diver is certain, that they weren't from here. He was definitely afraid to go any further than that because of the fact that he was with the military, from what we understand, was not allowed to talk about them. Not only does he say that, but we've had evidence of other military personnel involved in this operation who say the same thing, that they're not allowed to talk about it on camera. They don't want their names mentioned for fear of some reprisals. Whatever that may be, we don't know.
Other military personnel that were at this operation in a support role have suggested that there was a great deal of tension in the operation between American and Canadian personnel. At one point, one of the officers felt it necessary to intervene at one of these discussions that was spilling out around the mess, And he tried to contain it and tell the diver to keep the comments down and that, you know, they shouldn't be talking about the operation over the Russian sub. And to which the diver responded saying, I don't know what that goddamn thing is down there, but it's no submarine. It isn't anything from this planet. And like, you can say whatever you want, but we know what we're saying.
There you go. That is not a Russian submarine, this diver says. I don't know what's down there, but this, whatever this is not any kind of submarine. And as it is kind of Gucci goo cute when I hear a gentleman say, God damn. Because, you know, it was kind of muted. It wasn't emphasized, and he didn't say, God damn. You know what I'm saying? Sorry, guys, for the people out there that are easily, I don't know, whatever. I'm off the rails. Help me, Frank.
Very interesting details here. So, again, we got these people in the town seeing this. We got all these, you know, the fishermen, the photographer, they're all seeing this. They're seeing all these strange details. Military rolls up. Silence. That's the end of the story. Radar officer comes out years later, says there's a big deal going on here. These divers kind of leak to the press years later. There's a big deal coming over here. And basically, to finish the story off, this thing moved in front of this military base. They were sending divers down there for 5 days, and they saw these 2 UFOs under the water. So down there doing something. And again, this is the same place where they have this listening post set up for all these different listening devices and sensors in the ocean. So that these 2 UFOs would choose this same location is suspicious. Now, as the story goes, and I couldn't really substantiate this part, a Russian submarine actually shows up, and it breaks this 12-mile barrier off the coast. So it enters in past the ocean territory into the actual area. I'm looking for the word for that, but it enters into, you know, the ocean space of the countries, this Russian submarine. And then these 2 UFOs, well, they lift off, they fly away, and no one ever sees them again. Now, we actually have a leaked document from the RCMP, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Someone dug up this document here, and it's kind of a deposition of one from the RCMP to one of the people involved in this. And you'll see a witness statement here, if you can pull this image up. We won't read the entire thing, but the final 2 lines here are pretty interesting. So this is, you know, an official interview from the people involved in this project. I had never seen anything like that before, but it sounds like the thing they're looking for down off Shelburne or Barrington Passage. When the object left, it went straight up into the air with only one red light. And this statement goes on to say that Captain Mercy is considered to be a reliable type of individual and bears a good reputation in his community. So the RCMP is interviewing these people. This thing, and this guy says this thing takes up, goes straight up, and flies away, only showing one red light. Pretty interesting.
That's good stuff. And notice on the top of this document, it says unidentified flying object sighting of Sandbro Light, Nova Scotia. So there's actual documents to verify this. Government documents from the Gucci Goo, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. It says right on top, whatever the hell that means. I guess it's their FBI or something, but an actual government document here. And so this happened. This is the thing that happened. We have eyewitness accounts. We have divers. We have fishermen. We have local townspeople. We have signs. There's signs up. They put signs up that said, here you go. I'll put another one up. Site of the 1967 UFO incident. So if that isn't some sort of disclosure, what the hell is, right? I don't know.
Aside from physical evidence, aside from a piece of a UFO or a dead alien body, they have everything. They got the witness testimony. They got a photograph. They've got radar reports. They have the divers actually talking about it. And finally, here we have a government document that's interviewing some of the people that were involved in this thing. So, yeah, this is the Roswell of Canada. This is pretty impactful. Again, I think the only reason we have this story is because the RCMP had to involve the people in the town, the fishermen, to drive out in their boats and go in the water and see this stuff firsthand. If it was the military cordoning off the area ahead of time, we wouldn't have had any of these details. They would have suppressed the entire thing. So this is a crash you might not have heard about. or maybe it wasn't a crash. Maybe it was a UFO espionage activity. Who knows? Who knows? But that's where the story ends. And I found this one pretty fascinating. I'd never heard about it before, but interesting.
We'll have to do a whole show. Like we did a big chunk here, but there's additional stuff where they believe that the two UFOs were communicating with each other. One was trying to help the other, which was in distress. Like there's all kinds of actual additional information that have kind of leaked out from one at one point or another. So we'll have to go back and dig into a lot of that and talk about this. But there's more coming. But what do you guys think? We got some good discussion going on here in chat. So this is the end of Shag Harbor for now. We will get back to Shag Harbor. But for tonight, that's it. But John wants to know, in chat on Facebook, says, can someone tell me what is the reason they feel they have to always cover up all these things? Why is it so secret? Why couldn't any of these sightings or crashes be told? Do they think our minds are so shallow that we can't handle the truth? That's a pretty good question, man. That's getting at the heart of the show here. And why we continue to talk about this stuff. Because why? That's a fantastic group of questions. And it culminates in why. Why can't we? What do you guys think? If you want to let us know, John, if you want to elaborate, or if anybody wants to comment on that, you know what to do. The number to call, 702-957-1037. The date, November 18th, 2018. So you can click on Discord, get on the show, talk to Frank and Mike, talk about UFOs, talk about Shag Harbor, talk about that great comment by John in the Facebook chat, or whatever else. Show feedback is good if you just want to say hi. But what do you guys think? What do you think? What do you think about that one, Frank? Why don't they tell us?
I don't know. I kind of wonder about that. If it's some kind of religious destabilization issue where countries that are very religious and if they have all their beliefs shattered overnight, maybe chaos will ensue. That could be it. Another thought I kind of had is that maybe the government doesn't want us communicating with the aliens, right? Maybe they want to suppress that information, so the only forms of communication are between the government and the UFOs, because you can easily imagine a situation where or just some crazy hippie starts talking to these UFOs and they muddy up the works and they inadvertently start a thing like that, right? So maybe this is a diplomatic effort. They want to keep the lines of communication as simple and as easy to understand as possible. I'm not sure. There's a ton of reasons. I don't know, though. I think they should disclose, and I think we'd be ready for it. We'd be prepared.
I think we're prepared. We know it. It's happening. There's signs up. They put signs up. Do you see that? You see that, Frank? In Canada, there are signs up where it says 1967 UFO incident right here. It's like they want you to stop and get irradiated or something. Or or I don't know. They put a sign up. It's like, come on. That's an official sign. That's a government sign. Come on. Anyway, okay. So they're like poking fun at their own lack of disclosure by putting the sign up. Anyway, okay. So we got a couple more we're going to get into in just a bit. But if you guys have any comments, if you have want to get on the show and talk about Shag Harbor or any of the news topics we mentioned, we're talking about UFO crashes, and it begs the question. So in the very beginning, Nick actually asked, why do UFOs fly so far and then somehow, some way, they have problems once they get to Earth? Why is that? Is that a good question? I think that's a pretty good question to ponder and to discuss as we go forward here, because you dodge the Kuiper belt, you like Han Solo said, you dodge the supernovas and the whatever's out there. You could, it's not like flying a starship is not like dusting crops, boy. It's technical stuff. You have to know where you can fly, where you can't fly. But in this particular instance, they make it all the way here, and then somehow, some way, they crash. So doesn't that make you suspicious in terms of maybe there's some sort of military action going on? Some sort of maybe we're bringing them down somehow? Kelly had a comment way but it was way when we first started. But it was something to the effect of, he read somewhere that we were sending some kind of sonic transmission that interfered with their navigation, which brought them down, or something to that effect. So I'm not exactly sure, but what do you guys think? What do you think about that, Frank? How come they come so far? They get up on top of us, they're here basically on the planet, and then for whatever reason, we have crashes. And it's not just one, it's dozens, it's hundreds, it's probably thousands, but we just don't actually get the information about this stuff. It's pretty peculiar, no?
Yeah, it's an interesting thought. I think if you had asked me 10 years ago, I would have said, yeah, they're shooting them down, there's some kind of military action. I'm starting to become more inclined to believe that these things aren't coming from different solar systems, they're coming from parallel dimensions, or they're coming through time somehow. And that making that transition, or maybe even they are going through the sun in some kind of jump gate or something like this, and making these transitions damages them, causes them problems, breaks them up, makes them weaker or more susceptible to accidents. That's the only thing I can think. I don't think they're flying through conventional space, point A to point B in a straight line. I think they're doing something, whether that's transiting a dimension or transiting a stargate, and perhaps that damages them somehow and leads to these crashes. I don't know what to think. That's what I would put my mind.
Okay, there we go. What do you guys think? What do you think? We got good conversation going on here in the chat. Anything on YouTube there, Frank? We can chip in some comments.
Yeah, just some brief discussion. Nothing too important.
But hey. Those guys are important too. Come on, man. Okay, so, all right. So we have the actual Shag Harbor event we just talked about, guys. We talked about this thing flew in, hovered a little bit, splashed into the harbor. The military came out, retrieved it, and of course it's been covered up. And there's speculation it was maybe a Russian submarine or some kind of other nondescript, undescribable military technology from Canada or the United States. And that's the end of the story, right? You just put this one to bed, file it under case closed, and Mulder and Scully never get a good look. Right? Is that where we're at? Everything is fine here.
I guess so. Until deathbed confessions, those seem to be in vogue of late. People on their deathbed coming out and saying, I was there, I saw this, I saw that. So this only happened in 1967. We got a few years yet. Maybe more information will come out, but I kind of doubt it. I think it's been shut down, it's been suppressed, and that's the end of it.
There you go. It's been shut down. And that's what they prefer, right? So us bringing this up is kind of poking at the bear, which I think we're okay with that a little bit. All right, so that was the Canadian Roswell. So why don't we just transition to the actual Roswell? How about that? Have you heard of that one, Frank? The actual Roswell crash?
I think I've heard of it a couple of times.
Couple times? Okay. All right, so everybody knows this one, all right? We were going to just throw it into the mix because this will get its own show, of course, and probably several shows in the future. There were some recent revelations about, smoking gun of Roswell, documents found in somebody's attic, all kinds of stuff. But we're going to go through just the quick buzz of what Roswell actually is and was. So we're talking, this is 1947, okay? The official story is a weather balloon crashed at a ranch near Roswell, New Mexico, okay? Which, again, we've all heard this. However, the plot thickens. I'll put up some pictures of Roswell here. It's not as easily described away as a weather balloon. That's what the government would have you believe. But, okay, so it was actually described as a crashed flying disc. Okay, a disc, like an actual UFO, like a flying saucer, okay? The U.S. military stated it was merely a conventional weather balloon, and subsequent interest waned until the 1970s, they say, when ufologists, and this is the official story, right? So this is from the Orwell's Ministry of Truth, Wikipedia, okay? So I'm going to just read a couple lines from here, and then we'll jump to something better. We'll actually describe what happened in this place and where it came from and some of the actual things instead of this weather balloon business. So in the 90s, the U.S. military published 2 reports disclosing the true nature of the project, the crashed object. a nuclear test surveillance balloon from Project Mogul, M-O-G-U-L. Okay, so that's the official story. That's Roswell. Okay, the government says nothing to see. We know what it was. It was a crash. It was our equipment. This is what it was for. Here's the project, and it was being used as a, what was that? Nuclear test surveillance balloon. Okay, now how legit does that sound at this point, Frank? How we look there? You buying that?
Yeah, so I did. They recently came out with a story that they had kind of sounding devices in the upper atmosphere, and it was one of these things. So at certain altitudes, explosions could echo through the atmosphere and reach vast distances. So if you were high enough in the air, you could hear an explosion on the other side of the world, essentially. And that was the story they came out with. I don't know. It doesn't fit the details. It doesn't fit the witness reports and some of this debris they recovered and all these stories about aliens and little gray men and all this kind of stuff. So, their cover story does make sense in some way, but it doesn't, as usual, address all the other issues.
Which is true. Okay, so we have a clip that will describe the beginning of this and kind of how it's happened through the ages better than I could. So we'll dip into a little bit more after, but let's going to play the Roswell crash clip. Here we go. Action.
Is there something out there? That's a question people have been asking now for 70 years. Back in 1947 came the very first report of the crash landing of a flying saucer.
A flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
It was said to have happened near a U.S. military base in Roswell, New Mexico. Right away, rumors spread that alien bodies had been found in the spacecraft.
Well, Roswell is really the ground zero of the UFO phenomenon. It's the place not just where there was a sighting. I mean, most of these UFO encounters are just lights in the sky. Here, the suggestion was that something crashed. And if that's true, the US government, at that point, had in its hands definitive evidence that humanity is not alone.
No one could have predicted that first mysterious Roswell report would spark a pop culture phenomenon with UFOs that has gone on now for 7 decades.
That thing that you found in New Mexico.
Dad.
Where was that?
Not the spaceship.
Was that Roswell, New Mexico?
From the blockbuster film Independence Day to the TV series Roswell and a 2-part X-Files episode. In 1995, the Roswell incident was back in the headlines when Alien Autopsy, Fact or Fiction, aired on network television. It showed what was said to be military doctors performing an autopsy on an alien corpse recovered from the Roswell crash in 1947. The footage was later exposed as a hoax. That so-called alien, it was sculpted out of clay. Even former President Bill Clinton wonders what really happened at Roswell. Was there a cover-up? In 2014, he revealed on Jimmy Kimmel that as president, he demanded to be briefed on claims of a close encounter at Roswell.
If you saw that there were aliens there, would you tell us?
Yeah.
You would?
Well, there it is. That's Roswell for you. Okay, so this was kind of a from the way it started to the way it ended. Okay, from the actual crash to the modern day, and you notice how they dug it, right? They it was faked. So they said, okay, this is the Roswell crash landing. Here's some of what happened, but then they segued into an alien autopsy, right? And then from that point, they were like, well, that turned out to be a fake. And so as a result, right, so the entire thing, you're able to just throw that in and say, because one thing about it was fake, all of it was fake. Do you follow me? Does that make sense?
We looked at these autopsy videos and some of the other stuff, some of these leaked videos on a different show. And you know what? When I was doing the research, pulling these videos up, I couldn't find any sculpted out of clay. As far as I know, there was no sources that indicated that. So, I'm calling nonsense and I'm calling fake news on that story. I didn't see anything that indicated they were sculpted out of clay anywhere in my research.
Well, and if that's the case, then they have these clay things, right? Shouldn't they be in a museum where they're actually saying, hey, look, here's the fake alien autopsies made of clay. Ha ha. here they are. We found them, and here you go. You can pay us $5 to see them. No, it probably doesn't exist, does it? Yeah, doesn't make sense. Okay, so
just another point in the clip there. It's almost as if the more and more something is investigated, the more people talk about it, the more people come up with their theories, the harder it is to understand the truth, because they just shit it up. They add so many erroneous details into it that at the end of the day, 60 years later, we have no idea what went on. It's just too much information, too many contradictory stories, and I think that clip kind of highlighted it pretty well. It's become too popular to understand. It's taken on a life of its own almost.
And again, so this is acknowledged by the government, and they just say it's a completely different thing, which, again, surprises nobody, right? Because anything that happens now, they still just say it's something else entirely. We can't get a straight answer from NASA, from the government, from any of these guys. We just had a Oumuamua, right? We've talked a lot about that. I know a lot of you guys are tired of it, but it's a thing. It's literally a possible, maybe a remnant of an alien craft. And so somehow, some way, there's nothing to see, right? Hit pieces, smear pieces. They're talking about those Harvard guys must be off on their work, except nobody actually addresses their work. So again, it doesn't surprise me that the clip was kind of that way, and that was why I cut it up, because it was basically saying nothing to see here. It's a mythology now, just like you said, Frank. It's become something bigger than it ever was, and it's spawned a lot of things. I think the title of that article that I found was that, which had that bit there, was in 1947 a UFO crashed and the aliens never went home. It was something like that. So it was a way of, not obviously talking about aliens. They were talking about, it had spawned an entire completely new thing, which ufology and reptilians and the whole deal, Alpha Centauri and ancient aliens and this whole bit. So it was kind of a tongue-in-cheek stab at everything at the same time. So they're basically tracing every theory, every modern theory from now until Roswell in 1947 to that single moment. And then they're saying that because that single moment, in their opinion, was trash, was fake, was government weather balloons, that every theory from then till now is nothing. It means nothing, and there's nothing to it, right? It's a what would you call that? Was that a classic straw man argument? I don't know. It's embarrassing to me that you can make a sweeping generalization like that about decades and decades of data and different different crashes and UFO sightings and eyewitness testimony, and then you just wave your arm, the magic wand, and make it go away. This didn't happen. It didn't happen, right? Yeah.
I think this is something we see with everything, with all these issues, is, there's all these stories about religion, and religion is codified into this one particular thing. And then you go back and you start reading about the Anunnaki and all these ancient gods, these tall, giant people. And you wonder if they're one and the same. It's just that in the meantime, they've conflated it to be this other thing that it really isn't. We've put our own spin on it. And I think we've done that with Roswell. We do that with everything. The more we look at these things, the more we, again, muddy the waters and make them impossible to understand, because we're adding our own analysis on top of it. That's what we're trying not to do here. We're trying to look at the evidence and see what we can see. And if there's nothing there, there's nothing there. But yeah, I don't know. That's the way I like to approach this, is keep an open mind and don't make the story about you.
Yeah, exactly. Let's not make this about Frank and I. This is about Roswell. So here's the actual Roswell Daily Record. You guys have all seen this. Anybody who's watched any UFO show, this has popped up. This is the actual newspaper. Okay, so right there it says, in the headline, harassed rancher who located saucer, sorry he told about it. That's kind of telling. Way back in 1947, they're harassing the hell out of him without social media. So what does that tell you? What does that tell you about the incident? But the top headline is RAAF captures flying saucer on ranch in Roswell region. Okay, so yeah, interesting stuff. So this is not a deep dive on the Roswell crash. It's to talk about some of the things that came out of it, some of the evidence, and we have a leaker. We have a guy who actually worked on this by the name of, what is this guy's name? Let me see here. His name is Philip Corso, in case you guys have heard of him or not. Hold on. Let me do a little bit about Philip Corso before we play his clip, where he's talking about some of the things that were found at the Roswell crash, okay? Let's see. Philip Corso. All right, so he was Philip James Corso. This is right off Ministry of Truth, your favorite Wikipedia, from George Orwell, brought to you by George Orwell and the movie and book 1984. So Philip James Corso served in the United States Army from 1942 to 1963, earned the rank of lieutenant colonel. He published the day after Roswell a book about how he was involved in the research of extraterrestrial technology recovered from the 1947 incident. On July 23rd, 1997, he was a guest on the popular late night radio show Coast to Coast AM with none other than Art Bell, where he spoke live about his Roswell story. Okay, so this is Philip James Corso. Okay, and so not only was this a government cover-up, this individual says that he worked on this project when it was happening, and he's familiar with some of the, let's say, alien artifacts that were collected from the crash. Have you heard of this guy, Frank?
No, I actually haven't heard of him. So, yeah, let's play the clip.
Okay, let's see what Philip Corso has to say about the Roswell crash.
During the Cold War era, Corso says, there was great government concern that the Russians would gain access to the alien materials. Or worse, the aliens would use their superior technology to invade Earth. According to Corso, an ordinary filing cabinet contains the extraordinary artifacts of the Roswell crash. A piece of super strong metallic cloth. Corso contends it may have protected the alien pilots in their spacecraft. A tube that appears to shoot a searing red light. Corso thinks it might be a surgical instrument or a weapon. An alien-made headband that, according to his military reports, might have been used to transmit thoughts or control the alien craft. An imprinted set of miniaturized circuits, perhaps a prefabricated microcircuit. A flexible wire that might have transmitted light through its interior. And a lens that could allow anyone to see in the dark, supposedly taken from the eye of an alien being. To better understand the puzzling contents of the filing cabinet, Corso claims to immerse himself in classified government documents reporting on alien technology supposedly found at Roswell. According to the reports that Corso claims to have read, some of the world's foremost scientists, men like Wernher von Braun and J. Robert Oppenheimer, have access to the Roswell crash site. Corso says that Lieutenant General Trudeau greenlights him to assemble his own A-list team.
Which we will go into in another episode where we do the deep dive on Roswell itself. But how about that? He talks about actual alien artifacts that were recovered. And I have up on the stream here where they have the famous picture of the two airmen with the tinfoil looking weather balloon. And they're trying to say that this is what actually crashed. This is the thing. And then so we have this guy, Mr. Corso, that worked during this time with this project and actually says it was an alien crash landing. And all of those amazing artifacts that came out of it. So how about that? Did you hear that clip there, Frank? Were you able to?
To me, I don't buy that. He knows that this particular tube does this particular thing. This alien blanket could have protected them somehow. There was too much precise detail there. You know what I mean? That rang a little untrue to me. He knew that this device did this and this device did that, when in reality, we'd be looking at this stuff and we'd have no idea what's going on. You know what I'm saying? Like, that seemed to me, he was too certain of himself. I don't know if you get that feeling too, but that seemed like Seemed like some kind of disinformation, to be quite frank.
Yeah, that was some narration, not the man himself. But so I haven't read the book. There's actually somebody in chat here that says they read the book, that they've read this guy's book. Hey, if you've read Philip Corso's book, I saw you in chat talking about it, give us a call. We'd like to hear your take on the book itself. We didn't get to parse the entire thing, of course, because there's only so much time. But if you want to give us a call, talk about Roswell or alien crashes, talk about why they fly all this way just to crash. Is it a military thing? Is this what's going on here? Is it all faked? Is it disinformation? What's really going on? But if you want to do that, please give us a call. We do the show to include you, so this is how we do it. You give us a call at 702-957-1037, and you can also click on the Discord link and the Facebook stream, and we'll put you in Discord with Frank and Mike. We'll talk about Roswell. We'll talk about Shag Harbor. We'll talk about Rendlesham Forest, which is coming up next. We'll do a brief on that as well. But if you have comments on how, when, why, feedback on the show, if you want to talk about, ask us particular questions about whatever, we've had some pretty good callers talk about all kinds of things. So there we go. Christian, thanks for showing up, says the aliens were drunk driving. And of course he's got the funny emoji, but there we go. Okay, so I like that one. It's a good comment, but let's say maybe not, unless they were into our pituitary or whatever. What's that gland they wanted to suck out of us, just like crack? Maybe. Okay, so that's Roswell, guys. So that's the brief. This is the one that started it all. So we started with the Canadian Roswell. Now we're on to the real Roswell. And Philip Corso, a whistleblower, says that all these things actually happened. That's Robert, actually, in chat that said, read the book the day after Roswell. So if you've read it, Robert, give us a call, man. We want to hear what you think about the book. If there's any additional information that you can tell us about the book itself, and if you believe the guy or not, like anytime you look into this stuff, you have to do it with a half skeptical and half open mind, right? Because you can't buy everything, because people say some outlandish and outrageous things. So we kind of try and walk the line and look at both ways. But if you've read the thing and you have a take on whether the guy was correct or not or whatever, we'd love to hear it. 702-957-1037, and there you go. Anything else on Roswell, Frank, before we move on to Shag Harbor?
Yeah, I just pulled up that book because I was interested in ordering a copy to go through it. And it's interesting, the Amazon reviews, there was 1 star. There's a bunch of 1-star reviews. So you'd think that that's because the book was written poorly or there were spelling mistakes in it or something like that. But all these 1-star reviews I saw is like, there's no such thing as aliens, or this guy's full of it, and all this kind of stuff. So they're using even Amazon as a judgmental platform to say that aliens don't exist, and there's no such thing as Roswell, and nothing happened. Off topic, but pretty interesting that people are actively voting something poorly just because they don't believe that it could be true. I think that's a good indicator of how close-minded some people out there really.
Well, if you just look at the political discourse, that's exactly what it is. That's what we've turned into. If it's not something like close to your core beliefs, one way or the other, you don't actually ask questions to learn more about it. You instantly trash it, right? It's we're in the hit piece culture, and we see it every day. No matter what you pull up, there's some kind of hit piece. It could be on bread, or it could be on lunch meat, or it could be on, you name it. Like you literally name it, and there's hit pieces you can find about it. It's insane. It's the craziest thing. And not only that, you can find something the opposite about it, toting its virtues and how good it is for you, etc. It's absolutely insane. They call it the post-truth era, and maybe it started because of the aliens. What do you think? Interesting thought. But yeah, okay. So you want to give me like 90 seconds, Frank? I'll be right back.
Yeah, sure.
Say some stuff. Thank you, Brad.
He's had we've both had some strange things happening after we started the show. I've had some visitors knocking on my door late at night, and this has never happened before. And again, he's had some strange characters talking to him. So I don't know if they're onto us. I don't think we're popular enough for that yet, but maybe this may suppress their information. They try to get inside their heads. Of course, maybe I'm just crazy. That's a possibility too. Yeah, interesting topics. The more we go into this, the more interesting it becomes. I thought at this point I'd be looking at this stuff, I'd be getting sick of it. I'd be thinking to myself, all these people are crazy. You start to see the links between these things. You start to see the system at play. All these UFO crashes, and again, we're not going to be able to cover all of them on the show today, only a few. But we start to look at these things and you see this phenomenon. For example, with this Shag Harbor, when the military gets involved, it's all disinformation. It's all shut down so quickly. But for example, there was one we won't cover today, but it occurred in Russia. And these Russian farmers come out and they start looking at this thing. And because of that, we have a bunch of details. And then the military gets involved and they quiet the entire thing down. So really, we have to be our eyes out. We have to look at the skies, look at the ground, look underneath the water, and pay attention to all these things, because the establishment is never going to give us the true answer. We have to keep watching. We have to do our jobs. History, happens to everyone. It doesn't just happen to government officials and celebrities. It doesn't just happen to people in the news. It happens to us. So keep your eyes out. Start paying attention. Start looking for these things out there. And, if your eyes are open, you might actually see something.
And exactly. And not only that, sorry, I'm back. Not only that, we've got a lot of people in chat here saying they've seen UFOs. Some have seen UFOs. Some say they haven't seen their first one. Some say they've seen 2 or 3. What do you guys think? If you've seen UFOs and you believe this stuff, give us a call. We want to know why, or we want to know why not. 702-957-1037. Click Discord, and we want to hear what you think. This is Roswell. This is Shag Harbor. This is Rendlesham. We're about to touch real quick, but what do you think? What does the believing public believe about this? What do you think? Still waiting to hear it. Thank you, Frank. Appreciate that. About to piss myself. No bueno. Okay, so let's finish this up. We got about 10 minutes left or so. You want to try and squeeze in Rendlesham?
Yeah, go for it. I haven't heard too much about that one. That seems to be the Roswell of the UK. Is that?
It is. Okay, so Armando says he's seen UFOs 3 times. Fred's seen a few UFOs, but yes, okay, so here we go. We're going to continue reading. There's some chat, but we're going to go into really quick Rendlesham Forest. Okay, and now that was an incident in the United Kingdom. Let me get the information real quick. We'll do the same thing with the Ministry of Truth. So we'll see what they have to say about it, and then we'll look at what maybe MUFON has to say about it, and somebody that actually believes this stuff and doesn't want to just instantly shit on it like Wikipedia. But here we go. So from Wikipedia, the Ministry of Truth. In December 1980, there were a series of reported sightings of unexplained lights near Rendlesham Forest, Suffolk, England, which had become linked with claims of UFO landings. The events occurred just outside RAF Woodbridge, which was used at the time by the United States Air Force. USAF personnel, including Deputy Base Commander Lieutenant Colonel Charles I. Halt, claimed to see things they described as a UFO sighting. Okay, so this is Wikipedia. I'm not going to bore you guys with this because that's crap. And it's basically people saying that it didn't happen the way that they said. So here's a clip from somebody who was actually there and has studied this extensively. This is from, actually no, let's do the intro clip real quick and then we'll play that afterwards. So this is the Rendlesham Forest action.
Explain Rendlesham Forest to us.
Oh, well, it's a long story, but basically, around 1980, Christmas time, it was the airbase RAF Woodbridge in Suffolk, which is surrounded by Rendlesham Forest. It was a quiet time, and a group of airmen were out on patrol. These are security policemen. Don't forget, this is around the time of Greenham Common, all the stuff about nuclear weapons, etc. They saw what they thought was an aircraft crashing into the forest, went to investigate, left their weapons behind. The further they went into the forest, this thing became, it was obvious it wasn't an aircraft, it was something that they couldn't identify, huge triangular-shaped thing. You've just heard John Burroughs describing this. He was one of the 3 men. And this thing supposedly disappeared some fantastic speed. They went back and reported this, and they went out later.
Okay, don't just tell us the story. What was it? I mean, what's the best theory as to how it was?
Well, it remains unexplained. I mean, there's been various theories that put forward over the years, including one that was quite convincing, I thought, by Ian Ridpath, science astronomer, who worked out that what probably have been seen, if not the first night, the second night these lights returned, as the Orford Nest Lighthouse, which is very, very prominent on the coast and flashes it looks very bizarre.
These were professional men who were watching these things. They wouldn't have been fooled by a lighthouse.
Well, it's amazing how many people are fooled by things that you would think they would be obvious. You know, the UFO history is just littered with people who said, no, this can't possibly be something, and then it turned out to be exactly that. You know, these are familiar things seen in unfamiliar circumstances.
And, I mean, in these archives, we are finding there are really lots and lots, and they do seem to correlate heavily with television and film events around.
They certainly do, yeah. I mean, I think it's really exciting that these documents now are finally being made available, and that's under open government freedom of information, and everyone now can just look at these files, download them, and make their own minds up. You know, there's been lots of speculation over the years that the government is hiding the truth. Well, the truth is there now. You can go and look at it yourself.
And you really believe that it is all there, that they haven't kept anything back, and because, of course, we could never know, do you? I mean, if you're a conspiracy theorist, what's to say that they haven't got better explanations to...
But that's a circular argument, isn't it? Because there will always be people, when all these files are released, and don't forget, there's only about a third that we've seen so far, there's a lot more to come, we'll always say that, well, this is a whitewash, that the real secret files are being seeded away somewhere else.
When you've now looked at some of these, you've looked at a lot of these, I mean, are they telling us that the Ministry of Defence take extraterrestrial type life or any of these kind of theories for UFOs, do they take any of this seriously?
The simple answer to that is no, and they never have done. They don't really want to get involved at all. They're only interested in finding out whether any of these things could be Russians or, you know, missiles or anything of that kind. But unfortunately, MPs and people like high-powered officials like Lord Hill Norton, a former Chief of Defence Staff, took this very seriously. And when you get MPs writing in and saying, you know, what are you doing about this Rendlesham Forest incident? You know, they have to have some information to come back to him.
There you go. Interesting point he made about the circular argument, and even when this stuff actually comes out, somebody will say, no, that's just disinformation, right? So the government doesn't actually want to...
Did he just tell us the government is not interested in UFOs? They only want to see Russian submarines and Russian planes, and they don't pay any attention to this topic? That seems very counterintuitive.
Yeah.
If anything, they're on top of the topic. They're rushing out to these crash sites. They're suppressing the information immediately, and they're doing everything they can to cover it up. So that argument there, I don't know about that.
True. Okay, so and the gentleman that was speaking there, his name is Dr. David Clark, and I don't believe he was there, but he's done a lot of study about it, so he's kind of like a researcher after the fact. So I misspoke that. But he does have a blog, so if you want to search Dr. David Clark, Clarke, he's done a lot of information on this, kind of gone through and reported a lot of it, and yeah, this is, if you want to read about this and not read Wikipedia, this is the guy. He's got a couple, 3, 4, 5 good pages on this on his blog. So there we go. So winding down, guys, got about 5, 7, 10 minutes left. If you guys want to call, we'll make time for you. The number to call, 702-957-1037. We're talking about UFO crashes tonight. We're talking about the evidence and trying to analyze some of it. And there's some good chat going on, and people talking about John in particular says, I've never seen one, but as big as our universe is, how could there not be other forms of life? That's a fact, Jack. And not only that, he says, I mean, they could be billions of years ahead of us. That is true. And with, the multiverse and dimensional travel and, like Bob Lazar said, changing the gravitational field to create a downward slide, things of that nature, like we can't do it yet, so they say, but to put it out of the realm of actual extraterrestrials being able to do that seems silly to me. Seems awfully silly. So, yeah, there we go.
So what actually happened here? So they mentioned they saw some strange lights. What actually occurred? Did something land or craft?
Yeah, okay, so a craft landed in the woods. Okay, so this is off of the blog of Dr. David Clark, which is like the gentleman speaking in that thing there. So December 2010 marks the 30th anniversary. And hold on, let me find the actual brief here so I can read it in his particular words, or I can just shoot from the hip. But okay, so basically this thing flew into the area and it landed in the forest. There were people scrambled from the nearby base that went to check it out, and some of the actual takes on this after the fact are astounding. So I have an actual image up where you can see somebody describes a craft that landed in front of them, one of the first responders to go check it out. So first it was reported, through radar, and it was reported through eyewitness testimony and saying there's something landed in the forest over there. There's the bright lights. We've been seeing these, and I think it was for several days actually that they've been seeing the bright lights in the sky, but then one came close enough and landed. Okay, so they sent a first responder out. I'm not sure exactly if we know the name of that guy, but his testimony is that he saw a craft, like an actual alien craft landed in front of him, and he was able to see markings on this thing. Okay, like he was that close to it. He was able to, I believe, even walk up and put his hand on it. And I don't believe there were actual aliens that he saw. Okay, here we go. Colonel Conrad is the guy. Yeah, this is so long. We'll have to do one on just this, guys. But there we go. Anything else there, Frank, on what you want to know about it? Because basically the thing landed. We had some eyewitness of an actual craft. By the time the cavalry showed up to back this guy up, the thing flew away, and they were able to watch it fly through the trees as it flew away. Okay. But they did have evidence of this thing landing. They had marks in the ground, in the forest clearing. They had broken trees where the thing flew in and also flew away, and so there was a big to do about this. And they spent a bunch of time after the fact, analyzing the area and burn patterns and that whole thing, just like the crop circles we talked about. But that's this in a brief. So they have actual eyewitness testimony of people saying they saw this craft land, and it was within distance of touching the thing. They were able to make out markings of craft, and there you go. We're out of time, or we'd go and I'd read more of this, but it's just so long. This entire thing is just pages and pages deep. But that's the brief crux of this, of the Rendlesham. So of course, the military there, which is the United Kingdom, they go into cover-up mode, and so you have people that live nearby, and so they, you have, just like Shag Harbor, you have people that live there close by and saw the thing and can verify, but you have the government trying to explain it away. So it's very similar to all the rest of these sorts of things. They seem to follow a pattern, no? They definitely do.
Yeah, it seems to be that the government is taking powers that they don't deserve, quite frankly. We need to take it back from them. This is ridiculous. Every time the government gets involved, they suppress something, they change things, they change the narrative to suit them, and it's just ruining the entire world, quite frankly. Overreach of powers. Talk about that. Talk about the last 15 years looking at... Okay, let's not get political here, but yeah, every time we want information, there seems to be one entity in our way, and that's the government.
That's the government. Here's some drawings of the craft that I put up there. So you can see the eyewitness that made these sketches. They dated them 29 December 1980. And it looks like a triangular craft. It looks like it's got a kind of like a cockpit on top, the front view, the side view. And thanks for pulling these up, Frank. Perfect. But so this is what the guy saw. He saw this actual craft, and it landed in front of him, and then it flew away. And before the rest of the guys could show up, he was kind of the only witness. But he actually saw the craft, and there's it left evidence behind. Footprints in the sand type of things, and broken trees as it flew in and flew out. So I think there might even be radiation in the dirt. So again, we'll follow up on this, go into it further, but there you go. That's this is supposed to be...
Did this thing crash, or did it just land and then take off?
I think it just landed. I don't think it was an actual crash site. It like broke through the trees to land, but it was near this Air Force base. So I think it was one of those situations where it was checking us out. It was kind of coming in as some kind of probe to see maybe about our military, or something like that for sure. But so we'll do the rest of this and do a whole show on Rendlesham, and we didn't do Roswell very well, so that's coming as well. But what do you guys think? We're at the end of this. We got open lines. We got an open Discord. We got chat to read, but it's more important for you to call in, because we want to hear what you have to say. We want to hear your voice. We want feedback on the show. We want you to just call in and say hi. So here we are. Good chat going on. Anything else, Frank? We're down to the end of this. Down to the end. That was Roswell. That was Shag Harbor and Rendlesham Forest. So there's just 3, but there's more. There's dozens. There's hundreds. There's thousands more. You guys are talking about things you've seen. So where are we at? How do we end this up? Is this all fake? I think we know the answer to that. There's an obvious answer to that, but yeah.
I was just checking eBay to see if I could buy some kind of a surplus anti-aircraft gun, but unfortunately, it doesn't look like I can. So I tried to do my part. I'd install one in my backyard, and if I see a goddamn UFO flying over top, he knows not to fly over top anymore. But yeah, they don't sell them. It appears on eBay. I'm sure I could get one from somewhere. But
Okay,
I think
so-
we have to embrace unconventional ideas here. We have to think about things in a different way, because the way it's been going so far, it's not working out well for us, right? We can't rely on these people to give us the information. We have to get the information ourselves somehow. And if that's installing an anti-aircraft gun on your roof and shooting the damn thing down when it flies over top, maybe that's what we have to do.
Maybe. If that's what you guys think, let us know. Let us know. We're going to finish this up. I do have another clip. Let's play this. So, not only did this happen in 1980 with Rendlesham, okay, there's actual. We'll play this clip and then we'll end the show. But if you guys have comments, please give us a call. We got a few minutes left. 702-957-1037. Click the Discord link. We'll put you on the show. But this is a clip about modern sightings in Rendlesham. So it didn't stop. This continues to happen. It's like one of those UFO hotspots in the world. So let me play this real quick, and then we'll end this sucker. Let's do it. And action.
This person encounters something they couldn't explain. They had this to say. Forgive me for how vague this story is, as it happened around half a year ago, and I haven't been able to stop thinking about it. I live in Alabama. Behind my house is a hill sloping downward and then up again, and covered in woods for several acres. One day I heard a crunching sound outside. If I had to guess, I would say this was around 20 yards from my back porch. I immediately went out and looked. During this time it was the middle of the day, so I was able to see everything easily. When I peered outside, I could see 3 humanoid figures jumping up the far side of the hill. When I say jumping, they looked exactly like how a deer looks when they're leaping up hills, but they definitely weren't deers. They were all on 2 legs going completely vertical up the hill. I couldn't make out any other defining features, other than they were a kind of tan white in colour. I ran inside to get my wife, and of course they were gone by the time I came back. I haven't seen them since, but do regularly hear strange noises outside at night. I've also found several yard decorations broken. Another person had a similar encounter in the UK.
I'm killing that. That was Georgia. That was not Rendlesham. You can blame me for that. Okay, so
I couldn't really understand what that guy was saying, because he wasn't speaking.
Yeah, he wasn't really speaking English. He was like pidgin English or something. Okay, so anyway, guys, this is the end. UFO crashes. Is this evidence, or is this just hearsay? Are we? This is the court of public opinion right here. Right here. This is what we're talking about. What do you think? Is this fake? Is this government disinformation? Is it BS? Or are they really here? Are the aliens here? Are the aliens here? I don't know. I'm going to give Frank one outro to tell us if the aliens are here or not, and then I'm going to take one and we're going to play some music. Let's play some music, Frank. Let's do it.
I think we're at the stage where we can only determine if the aliens are here if we do it ourselves, if we work together as people and avoid the governments, avoid SpaceX, avoid NASA, and actually figure this stuff out for ourselves. And I think we saw a step towards that with this analysis of the Oumuamua, showing this thing was very thin. To me, in recent years, that is the most compelling evidence for some kind of extraterrestrial civilization out there that I've quite frankly ever seen in the last 10, 15 years. So we got to pay attention to these things. We got to analyze this data. We got to figure things out for ourselves, because the government isn't going to do it for us. Never, never, never trust the government.
There you go. And Todd's poking fun. He says, yeah, because aliens want to break yard decorations. They travel millions of light years to break your yard gnomes. Get out of here, Todd. Get out of here, buddy. No, but it's a sighting. Is it aliens? Who knows? But just like we can't discount your sightings, we can't discount that first-hand sighting either. So, funny comment. I know you're making jokes, but anyway, okay, so here we are. This is the end. UFO crashes. Real or not? Something for you to ponder. And we'll have another show coming to you on Tuesday. Tuesday's a free-for-all show. We do open topics. So if you guys want to be part of that, that'll be Tuesday, 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern Time. And we'll read some news articles and take whatever you guys got. Phone calls, comments, YouTube links, whatever. But in the meantime, you're listening to Troubled Minds Radio. And if you want to help us out, go to troubledminds.org. The website is back up. I think we got hacked by Russian operatives or Chinese spies, or hell, who knows, maybe it was aliens. But it's back up now. We won the fight for now. Go to troubledminds.org, click on all the social stuff, like us, thumbs up, leave us comments, etc., etc., and you can help us out. We'd appreciate that a lot. So, yeah. Otherwise, like I said, you're listening to Troubled Minds Radio. I'm your host, Michael Strange. I'm here with your co-host, Frank Pierce. And from our Troubled Minds to yours, have a great night.